farming for a little while, and then asked him how he's feeling. And my kid said he feels great. So he said, okay. And called my wife back and said, yeah, he says he's okay. She's like, well, why are you calling me then? What's the point? Like, it also goes back to his teacher. Like, I'm not sure when she became a doctor instead of just being a teacher that she can diagnose people.
Oh, well, that's the problem is when the doctors that are supposed to know shit are telling us really stupid shit. Like it's hard to. Yeah, I don't know, man. I hate the world that we're living in right now. But anyhow, yeah, I know like Canada's known for being all nice and polite and like generally good people. Um, but like that socialist bent runs pretty deep there up north, from what I can tell.
It does. I think some people might be starting to get fed up with it. I hope. There was a protest in Montreal last weekend that had apparently 100,000 protesters at it to protest their curfews and lockdowns and shit. Alberta had a rodeo.
100,000. That's a lot of people.
That's pretty impressive. You talk shit on the French all the time. I do, but that's good for them, I guess.
Well, that's one thing about the French is they do know how to stir some shit up. Like they may not know how to win a war, but they know how to tell their government that they are not happy.
Well, yeah, you look at that yellow vest movement that was 2 years ago, right? That's where it started.
Yeah. Well, and I like, as you know, and everybody that listens to me know, like I'm fascinated by the parallels in history. And like you look at some, like Colombia had some mass protests and like some violent, like pretty brutal response by the police. And part of it, like most of it, was spurred on, or I guess kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, from what I've read. And granted, it's not much, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But it all started because of tax hikes on the middle class, and they were just like, fuck you, that's enough. But there was a bunch of anti-lockdown stuff, anti-COVID bullshit. And like that shit is happening all over. Like in Denmark here a while back, they were protesting over the lockdown. China, they try to protest all the time, but if you unless you take the NBA's stance on China, which is China is fine and dandy,
well, Hong
you
Kong
get shut down, and in the meantime, like, yeah,
Hong Kong,
exactly, yeah, Hong Kong.
They tried to protest, then all of a sudden there's COVID. Hong Kong tried to protest, and then all of a sudden there's COVID. And gee, I wonder if there's a link there.
Yeah, it's kind of like well, like my douchebag of the week, it's a two-parter, since Aaron's got something going on with his tummy. His tum-tum's not feeling so good, so he couldn't make it today. But anyway, like I'll do a half and half for douchebag of the week between Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden. Joe Biden, by the way, just strictly to give him some sort of ceremonial event and take any credit away from Donald Trump, pushed the pullout of the troops from Afghanistan from May 1st. So that would have been Sunday. Was that right? Saturday, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, today's the 4th. So Saturday, we should have had all troops out of Afghanistan. They decided to push that back to 9/11 to make it a symbolic date, which it's a really fucking stupid symbolism part, because we're finally pulling out of Afghanistan, giving back territory to the Taliban, who we've been fighting for 20 years at this point, on the anniversary of one of the worst days in American history. Bravo, fucking idiot. And then I saw a headline today, and I didn't read the whole article because I could pretty well tell you what was going on just from the headline. But California, this is from the Los Angeles Times, California coronavirus cases keep falling like a rock despite surges in Washington and Oregon. Just coincidentally, here within the past couple of days, they've reached the critical mass of, signatures on the recall ballot or the recall petitions. And Gavin Newsom will be facing a recall election. And all of a sudden, California is opening wide up. Weird. Dual douchebags of the week. Gavin Newsom, Joe Biden. But anyhow, I wanted to talk a little bit about we mentioned them, and you were commenting on a couple weeks ago when I was talking about these churches up in one of them was in Alberta and the other one was in Quebec. Is that right? Or is Ontario?
Both in Alberta.
Okay. Both in Alberta, the different churches. And Alberta being one of the more conservative, probably the conservative province in Canada, right?
Supposed to be.
I guess like what we would call, like I would even say like they're the most supposed to be like the most liberty-minded people in Canada, from what I can tell.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
And I think the first one was that preacher telling cops to get out, kept calling them Nazis.
That was the second event.
Much really when you're shutting down a Christian church on Passover, that's pretty strong. Whether the state views it or not, I'm pretty sure that church views it as religious persecution, which was pretty big hallmark of Nazi Germany. So just kind of a different religion. But it looked like he succeeded. I don't know. You said that guy was from like Eastern Europe somewhere.
Arthur Pawlowski is Polish.
Okay. So the Polish know a little bit about religious persecution as well, or just overall, the effects of fascism and Nazism. They had a pretty front row seat to that bullshit.
Yep.
So I can see why that pastor was pretty fired up. We'll come back to him, but then the next church, and I don't know the specifics on it, but I know they sent like 200 armed Mounties, set up a wall around the church and basically barred them from entering.
Yeah, so it actually
is that where?
So that's the Grace Life.
Is that somewhat accurate?
That's the Grace Life Church. I think it's by Edmonton, and that was I think in February or March that started. They arrested the pastor. He was James Coates is his name. He was in prison for 35 days before he was released on bail. And it was after he was released, that's when they barricaded the church. And yeah, they kept meeting in secret. And his trial actually started yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. He's on trial for breaking COVID violations, I guess. And Pastor, the Polish there, Pawlowski, he is a pastor in Calgary. And he that happened after Grace Life Church was shut down and barricaded. And I guess last week or the week before, there was a warrant out for Pastor Pawlowski's arrest, but it has not been served for whatever reason. He's not hiding. They know where he is, but for whatever reason, they haven't served it.
Well, they caught a lot of flack here in the U.S. and mostly from like alternative media. I don't think there was a general public outcry in favor of Canada here. I mean, I know we talked about it here, and I heard several other people, but it got very little attention on the mainstream news because, well, if you criticize Canada for locking down churches, well, then you're going to have to criticize Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo and Gretchen Whitmer and all Steve Sisolak, all these other Democrat governors. So they just you turn a blind eye to it. But I also like to remind people that even though we live in the United States here, sorry about your bad luck, Brett. But the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting nor infringing upon the free exercise of religion, and that, so Congress being the legislative body in the U.S. writes the laws. So they don't write the law for the entire country, but they write the laws for the federal branch of the government. And they are the supreme branch, they are the supreme law of the land. So if what they say is not, in violation of the Constitution, doesn't matter however many different types of government below them try to do that. If the federal government can't do that, then the states can't do that either. If it's not mentioned in the Constitution, then the states, are left up to it. But the general overall idea is respect individual liberties. And the probably the most sacred, I would guess, or one of the most important, is the right to practice religion as you so choose. Thankfully, the Supreme Court has struck down some of these, infringements against the First Amendment. However, it's been a split decision, 5-4. So that means almost half of our 9 bodies of the Supreme Court, 4 of the 9 people decided that the First Amendment is not absolute when it comes to religion, and that's a problem. And where that leads to is what is happening in Canada right now. I mean, that is directly where that leads to.
Yeah, we have our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the wonderful Trudeau's own dad is the one that wrote it, and that gives you freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of mobility, freedom of association, all the rights that you're supposed to have, like, except in an emergency. Then none of that counts. What was the fucking point?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's they're supposed to be absolute for a reason, because regardless of the situation, these rights are held above all. Doesn't matter if it's a pandemic, a war, civil insurrection, whatever. Like, the spirit of this whole deal that we believe in as the Western civilization, it's individual rights and private property. That's what it all hinges on. And if that's not respected, then the Constitution is meaningless. And yeah, so they say Congress shall write no law, but apparently, just because the executive can declare it, well, apparently that doesn't violate the Constitution or Declaration of Universal Rights, or whatever they call it there in Canada. But going back to all of it, like it all violates the spirit of what we're supposed to be living in here in Western society.
The biggest issue with our Charter of Rights and Freedoms versus your Constitution is the Second Amendment. You have the right to bear arms. We have the privilege of firearm ownership, not the right. And that's the biggest issue with firearms in Canada.
Well, and it's not, I mean, and maybe it is coincidental, I suppose, the timing of it, but it's also something that really raises a red flag, is the fact that you guys just straight up banned what they call assault weapons. So the AR-15 style, the AK style, semi-automatic rifles, basically, which is the most effective besides IEDs, the most effective weapon against an invading force, or like the most effective weapon for an insurgency is a semi-automatic rifle and an IED, basically. And Canada banned those. And then shortly after came the lockdowns, and well, now the government pretty well acts with impunity. And yeah, you're right. That's the major distinction between America and pretty well the rest of the world is, even though our government's pretty goddamn tyrannical, yeah, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of guns that are not giving them up without a fight. Unless Donald Trump's in office, apparently.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't know. Nope.
But
nobody's given up their guns either here yet. They have a buyback program
well, that's
for all
good.
your assault rifles, but so far I don't know of anybody that's handed them in. So.
Dude, I would just go and round up all the plastic like toy AR looking toys that I could find and just turn them in and get as much money as I could. Like if we're gonna go full on welfare, fuck it. I'll cheat that system too and get a little bit of my money back. Yeah, hold on to them. Stand strong, Western Canada. We need you. We need you. Like if somebody's got to have a backbone, because apparently it ain't most of the U.S. and it ain't most of Canada either. But there's pockets out there that'll hold strong, and I don't know. I think slowly but surely America's starting to wake up, but it ain't fast enough.
I think you've probably seen the meme about little Timmy burying his Red Ryder BB gun. Little Timmy ain't turning in shit. That
yep.
Like that's true. There's a bill, a firearms bill going through Parliament, and if it passes, Red Ryder BB guns are going to be banned, and any other replica air rifle. It's
Jesus,
because that's what all the mass murders are committed with, is fucking Red Ryder BB guns. I bought a couple for my kids before they get banned.
Hell yeah. Well, we might have to smuggle some into Canada. Just swarm the Canadian border with Red Ryder BB guns.
They banned any rifle that, I forget what the muzzle velocity is, but like anything, your 50 caliber is banned. Like, is there people going out and committing mass murders with a 50 caliber rifle? Because I'm pretty sure you shoot 10 rounds and your nose starts to bleed.
Yeah. Let me look that up. So gun deaths with semi-automatic weapons. No, rifles. That's because that's where everybody is going, is basically what they deemed a weapon of war. All right, so this Scientific American data confirm semi-automatic rifles linked to more deaths, injuries, blah, 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 blah. This was from 2018. Well, it says if a shooter uses a semi-automatic rifle instead of another type of gun, it appears to roughly double the chances of victims being wounded and killed. Well, that's fine. But how many? Study from Hayter and colleagues, number of people hurt or killed in 245 or 248 active shooter incidents from 2000 to 2017. Times cross-referenced. They found that a quarter of all these shootings involved such weapons, whereas the rest involved handguns, shotguns, and non-semi-automatic rifles. So, out of 245 or 248 active shooter incidents between 2000 and 2017, A quarter of those involved an automatic rifle. In total, these shootings wounded 900 people and killed more than 700. So that's a 17-year period in this study that killed 700 people with a semi-automatic rifle. But I can't remember the exact total overall, but according to the FBI and CDC statistics, assault rifles, as they call them, semi-automatic rifles, account for less than 1% of all gun deaths, and which of all gun deaths, which they all say gun violence, they attribute them to gun violence. 2/3, 66% of them are suicides. So, yeah, and I would bet pretty good money that very few. I'd have to see the odds on particular numbers, but I would bet pretty good money that very few suicides are even committed with an AR-15. If you're familiar with guns at all, I mean, it's possible. It's very possible. Don't get me wrong to go ahead and off yourself, but it's a little bulky, unwieldy, and pistol probably is more effective. Not that I'm advocating for any of that, but
if you're gonna do it
the
right.
Statistics aren't there, but it is not a coincidence that they're going after AR-15s and semi-automatic rifles because, as we said, it's one of the most effective weapons to conduct an insurgency with. And if you look back at Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria now, insurgencies are pretty goddamn effective when they have decent firepower like that. So it's not real coincidental that all these draconian measures happened after this assault weapons ban in Canada. Not to say that it was directly correlated, but I'm saying it probably didn't hurt at all.
Well, the lockdowns came first and then the weapons ban. And then they eased up the lockdowns and then they brought them back again. And your douchebag of the week, I would like to add Jason Kenney as the premier of Alberta to that list for sure. Alberta had a rodeo.
What's his sins?
So Alberta had a rodeo last weekend, a 2-day event. It was the first rodeo that there's been.
How dare they?
Ever since the beginning of the pandemic. Ty Northcott organized it. And it was illegal, but they had 2,000 people each day. And I don't know, it says that there's going to be charges against the law. It was a rodeo rally is what they called it. There's talk about bringing charges against the landowner.
I know you sent me the... All right, sorry, I stepped on you there, but you sent me the link and I looked at it, but I was kind of busy, so I didn't delve much into it. So yeah, go ahead. It was a big rodeo, which obviously that's not allowed in Canada at this point. But
absolutely not.
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely not. No, you look at the videos and everybody's there with no masks on and sitting beside each other and pretending like they have freedom again. And that's just horrendous. And Premier Kenney just threw an absolute hissy fit over it about how that's not the cowboy way and you're affecting everybody. Like he fucking knows the cowboy way.
That's not the cowboy way. Fuck off, guy.
So
I think we can escalate this guy just for that part. We can bring him right to the top of the list. We'll Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden have had plenty of attention, so they'll be runner-up douchebags of the week. I'm okay with giving it to a Canadian.
Yeah, he is. He's a fucking snake. Like I don't know. When they ran their last provincial election, he was running against another guy for just head of the Alberta Conservative Party, and the other guy should have won because he was a pretty decent guy. But this one, Kenny got in somehow and beat him, and now he's the premier. And everybody was happy that they got rid of the NDP left wing party and got Kenny back in, but he's a fucking nightmare. I mean, he's better than NDP, but not by much. And yeah,
well, that's kind of the same thing with like. I'll go ahead. Sorry.
So he threw his hissy fit and he brought in a whole bunch more lockdowns again today. It's like closed gyms and restaurants. You were allowed to eat on a patio before. Now you're not allowed to do that. No dine in. No dine in.
Jesus Christ.
Takeout only. Yeah. No going to gym or get healthy or be active or any of that shit. That's no good. So.
Yeah, not do anything that actually will help you. But not apparently like if you're not old, fat, and diabetic, like you're probably pretty good chance you're going to survive it. Data kind of plays that out, and even with the treatments and shit that we've developed since then, even if you are old, fat, and diabetic, or combination of the three, there's still a pretty good chance that you're going to make it out alive. You might have some major health complications, but you had those before. Anyhow, like probably okay. I just heard on Ron Paul today, by the way, that the CDC is finally coming out against all these false positives with the COVID testing, because it's driving down it's making the vaccine numbers look bad. But back in like May, June, July, when everybody is saying like, hey, there's a bunch of false positives from these COVID tests, you were conspiracy theorist and COVID denier and blah 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 blah. And now when it fits their narrative, oh, these tests are not accurate. Well, if that was the case now, why wasn't it the case back then when we're making a huge issue of it? And like people are getting banned from social media and silenced for just questioning the narrative. Not even like that. That's all it really took, is just questioning the narrative. But yeah, you guys overstepped your bounds there in Canada. Way too much freedom, so they're gonna have to punish you a little bit, give you a little spanking there, Alberta.
I was looking at the numbers on the weekend because Alberta on Saturday, May 1st, they had, I think it was 2,044 new cases of COVID, they said. And that to me just makes absolutely no fucking sense. There is absolutely no way. There's 4 million people who live in Alberta. And you look at Texas and they're locked down. There's people who aren't following the lockdown restrictions, but there's a shit ton that are. But you look at Texas and having most of their restrictions been lifted, like 30,000 people at a baseball game sitting next to each other with no masks, 30 million people who live there, and they only had 2,000 new COVID cases on May the 1st. Mississippi lifted their mask mandate in March, and they had 0 new COVID cases. South Dakota has never had restrictions, and they had 0 new COVID cases on Saturday. So where the fuck is Alberta getting 2,000 cases in one fucking day?
They're all coming from North Dakota. They're or South Dakota. They're all coming from the free states and just a flood in Alberta. We got a border crisis on the northern border. That's what we got. We just all the COVID positives are flooding into Alberta. It's a caravan, migrant caravan.
So yeah, I put absolutely 0 stock in those numbers.
Yeah, that's the worst part about any of it is like I put more faith in a couple of podcasters than I do the head of the National Institute of Health or the head of the CDC or the head of the WHO or basically any mouthpiece coming from the government. I'll take your word for it over just about any government official. And we're just a bunch of dumb cowboys. And I don't know. It's amazing to me. Like I don't expect the government to back off their narrative because they're in too deep. Like they cannot admit that they were wrong now, or they'll lose power. That's how the game works. But it just boggles my mind how many people just accept the narrative and just go along with it. I don't know. It boggles my mind.
Yeah. Just keep on keeping on, I guess. Little off topic. Did you drop for your ranch rope? I found a place to use it if you want
shit. I did not get home in time to set up my little deal, but I will do that when we get off here. We'll give away 3. I gotta set up my spreadsheet and do that, but I'll draw those tonight.
I found a place to use it, so I hope I won.
Fuck yeah. Well, we'll draw your name, and then I'll just make sure to conveniently mention that, like, hey, we don't ship to Canada, so sorry, Brett. Just no, I'll ship to Canada. I don't give a shit. That's yeah, I appreciate. We got like 40 people that subscribe to the Patreon, and that's like 40 more than I thought that would. So that's awesome. But I would a month that, like, I don't keep any of it really. I buy shit for you guys because it's cool that you're paying that to listen to this stuff. But eventually, like, if we get enough people with, we can give away some really cool shit. So, like, tell your friends all that stuff. We went from a pair of jeans the first time to a cinch, and now we're giving away 3 ranch ropes. I hope to be able to give like a bit or a saddle away on this someday, but that's gonna take a little bit. Anyhow, it's I appreciate everybody that tunes in. But what any sign of hope coming out of Canada? Is there? You said there's some small pockets of resistance. Are we gonna have to take up arms to help the Canadians? I mean, I'm kind of game for that, actually.
Well, I don't know. I heard today, and this may be conspiracy. I haven't looked into it. Apparently, there's 30,000 UN troops in Canada. I'm not sure what they're doing here.
Oh, fuck.
So,
well,
bring something good with you.
Invite them there.
Well, I didn't, but I guess somebody did.
Yeah, well, the funny thing about the UN is they're about 90% funded by the US, which I would be all in favor of just pulling back from just withdrawing from the UN. Say fuck you.
Yep, me too.
You figure out how to keep this shit going without our money. I don't know, man. That it's getting spooky. I honestly I don't buy into the QAnon stuff that that it's all some grand global conspiracy. But it's getting harder and harder to discount that. I tend to be on the camp that a lot of these like special forces guys will say that that there's just too many incompetent people in Washington to keep a secret like that, and you can extrapolate that from the rest of the world that supposedly is involved in this cabal. But like I said, it's getting a lot harder to discount that. I still I'm not convinced that it's going to be like it's some great grand global conspiracy, but it's starting to look more and more like it.
I'm pretty sure 30,000 troops is more than Canada has for troops. So that's a lot.
I say that's about how many they sent in to Washington, D.C. After the so-called insurrection. They didn't send shit to Portland or Minneapolis or Seattle or LA or San Francisco or Chicago this summer. But they sent 25,000 into DC. And yeah, they shored that bitch up real quick.
Yeah, Canada doesn't send any RCMP officers when they're protesting pipelines and blocking rail lines, so you can't haul your grains or oil or anything, or potash for me. But if you try to protest COVID or go to church, there's the Mounties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. It's like they're still trying to throw a bunch of those Capitol Hill people in jail for pretty much the rest of their lives. But hey, they convicted Derek Chauvin of second-degree murder and third-degree murder and some sort of manslaughter, and they're still rioting in Minneapolis. So good work, Joe Biden. You catered to those fuckheads, and guess what? You can't please them either. So yay! Don't live in Minneapolis or Seattle or Portland. That's about the only advice I got for anybody there. Just move, get the fuck out.
Well, fella, I should go to bed. But it's been nice chatting with you.
Yeah, you too, man. I wish you the best, man. I don't know. Let's we'll get you back on here pretty regular because I it's a good thing to keep an eye on because like we're pretty similar in people and in mindset, you know, but so I don't know. Canada's always kind of a good bellwether for where the US is heading. You guys are just quite a bit more progressive than the US is, but if shit's looking bad in Canada, I'm not real hopeful for the US either.
Well, our own premier said today that our road to recovery is once 70% of adults are vaccinated, then he'll talk about removing his mask mandates. And Trudeau's talking lots about our vaccine passports. So pretty sure that's going to be a go. So that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Well,
the papers.
I don't know how you do it, but just you got to stand up against that shit. That has to, like, you guys have to, because if they can track you on your phone, I mean they already can, but like if they can force you to show your papers over your phone, fuck, there's nothing else that they can't do.
I saw a meme about an hour ago. It was like a year ago, it was 10 days to flatten the curve. Now it's show me your papers. Man, I did not see that coming.
Right?
NAZ.
Right?
NAZI.
Yeah, it's
in case.
Yeah. Well, man, like I said, I wish you the best of luck. We'll check back in with you, but thanks for coming on, man. Everybody else that's watching, we'll call that good for the main session. I'll rant a little bit here in the bull set or the Patreon session, but Saskatchewan Brett, folks. Appreciate the shit out of you, man. I do.
Yeah, you too.
All right, man. Take care.
You betcha. See ya.
See ya.